Good Tuesday morning to you. I am Dan Kopp, CEO and founder of Leading Like a Buffalo, and joining me, like always, is Ty Firsching. Good morning, Ty.
Good morning, Dan. How are you doing today?
I am wonderful. It is great to see you and talk leadership with you, just like usual.
Yeah, just to let everybody know, I am coming from Entebbe, Uganda. My name is Ty Firsching, and I am the CEO and founder of Trade Secrets, which brings to trade leadership this company we're working with. Now, February is Accountability Month. And I know that sounds horrible because whenever anybody ever starts talking about accountability, it's usually accusatory. So what we're going to talk about is accountability in all aspects of any organization. And so, Dan, take it away.
Right on. Before we get into today's topic of how great leaders maintain accountability in a hybrid or remote environment, I'd like to remind you that we'd love to work with you. You can join us at the Enhanced Leadership Project. Feel free to reach out to us at our emails at the bottom of the screen, dan@leadingbuffalo.com or ty@tradesecrets.com, or you can DM us directly on LinkedIn, and we'd love to hear from you. So if you're watching the replay or joining us live, feel free to drop in some comments, questions, and we'll do our best to address them. We'd like to have a discussion with those who are watching. So as Ty mentioned, we're entering February. In February, we're going to talk about accountability. And for most people, when you hear the word accountability, you think, oh, no, that's not good, accountability. But accountability is not a bad thing. Excuse me. At times it can be. Leaders need to know how to handle accountability in a manner that does not destroy people. We'll get to that in a future episode. But today we're going to talk about how great leaders maintain accountability in a hybrid or remote environment. So first of all, accountability in a hybrid and or remote environment is paramount, because if I've lived through this, I worked in an environment in an office, went remote with both of my companies, and even with my partners, it's rare that we have face-to-face meetings. We routinely meet via a webcam, and we have what I feel is artificial and less than stellar meetings, because it feels as if it's scripted and programmed versus organic. So I've lived through working in an office with my partner, and now I'm working remotely with the same partner. So I've worked with the same guy in two different environments, and it's different. There are pluses and pluses and minuses to both, but it is definitely different. So at the onset of when you decide as a decision maker in your organization, whether you're hybrid or remote, or you're deciding to bring people back in, whatever the case may be, it's imperative that you set expectations. So a great way to do it is to say, all right, by the end of this time frame, whether it's the morning, the afternoon, the day, the week, the month, whatever, we've got targets that we have to hit. You're part of this. We need to have this done by this time frame. So set appropriate expectations. Then make sure you follow up on those expectations, because great, you set up the expectations. And I've seen this across environments, across every sector of the organization, where people set expectations and then they're just sort of lost and lose their luster, and people don't address them. So set expectations, not through the lens of, hey, I got you, I'm going to hold you accountable if you didn't get them, but through the lens of, this is how we move forward, and this is how we continue to grow as an organization, meet our goals, and get better. Whether it's the end result is we're making more money, or we're serving our community better, whatever the case may be, the expectations are there, so that accountability has to come in the back end to ensure that we're meeting whatever it is our goal is, monetary, service-wise, whatever. Because without expectations, people are just like, oh boy, what should I do now? Having been an entrepreneur now twice and a founder in two different companies, I can understand that, because when I worked in organizations, there were organizational expectations, leadership expectations, et cetera. I was accountable to people beside me and above me in the organization, below me in the organization, et cetera. And it was easy because it was a tangible thing. But now that I'm I'm a solopreneur in some degree because I'm working a lot by myself during the week. It's hard to have that self accountability when you say, all right, I expect by the end of the week I need to get this done, make this connection, do X, Y, and Z. But it's easy to lose track of those things when you're working by yourself. So the same thing occurs when you've got a team of people. I have a colleague who works on a team of 8, and they routinely check in throughout the week, and they've got benchmarks that they meet on half day or full day increments. All right, at the end of the day, everybody should be here. Great, we're there. See you tomorrow. So they do that accountability check in, and it keeps the team moving forward, even though they're literally scattered across the country and never meet in person. So, Ty, I see you agreeing with some of the things I've said. So, what are your thoughts so far?
Yeah, accountability it's a double-edged sword, because not only do the employees have to be accountable, but as a leader, you have to be accountable for your employees. And what I mean by that is you have to make sure. I mean, we can go through all the procedural things and have a checklist. Make sure you do this, make sure you do that, make sure you do this, have a weekly meeting, make sure it's visual, and you have cameras on, and all these little things. But what really matters is what is happening. What is the core? What is actually happening? What work is being done? And the reason I bring this up is because I know quite a few people, including myself, that do virtual work, that are overworked because they're working from home. And the rationale is that, well, it shouldn't take you that long to do this project, especially in project-based organizations where you have a project and you're working on a project. Because sometimes what you think the project should take isn't the length that it takes. And employees get overworked. And if you have that type A personality, you're going to work through your meals, you're going to work through dinner, you're going to work at night just to meet those deadlines and get through it. And you're going to sacrifice your health. Now, I have a friend who owns a company like that. And I told him, I told her, don't sacrifice your employees' health. She's like, well, what do I do? I make them stop working and eat away from their computer. And then, how do I do that? Make them take a picture of the food that they're eating and send it to you. And she goes, well, that's ridiculous. And you know what? She goes, I'll try it. And she did it. And she was amazed that some of the people tried to take a picture or you use backdated camera pictures of food because they were working at the computer. And she realized that's an old picture because, you see the metadata when you send a picture, right? And she's like, what are you doing right now? They're like, I'm working. I'm like, you're supposed to be eating your steak. Like that. So there was this manageability, and this is where leaders have to be managers, because you're managing the work that they're doing, but you're leading because you care about them. And there's a difference there. And so all these little things like that, like I said, we can have a checklist, but there's philosophical ideas behind a hybrid or total remote working. One benefit for remote working is sometimes people work, and especially in the tech industry, you get something done early. You don't have anything on your plate for the rest of the day until you have something in the afternoon. Maybe it's an appointment with a client or something that you have to be online. So you have the whole morning off, essentially, if you got everything done for that day. Now, where does that fall in line with how the leaders or how your boss sees you? If you're not working, well, how come you're not working and the rest of us are working? I go, well, I got done with my stuff before you did, and I'm all caught up. Well, that's not fair. And then they pile on more. So there's this whole fairness of, I guess it would be, is everybody doing their equal share? They may be doing their equal share. Somebody may be just faster at it than somebody else. Where do you draw the line then? What do you do? And I'm actually asking, Dan, because there's a dichotomy there. You can't be too harsh. You can't pile on too much. You can't remove from the others, because then it's not fairness in pay. Somebody's going to find something to gripe about.
Right. I've lived in that environment. I ran an organization in which we had all of my direct reports, my directors, senior leadership, they were all salaried positions. So from the get-go, I talked about two things. Fires. You got to put out fires in your job, right? You've got tasks to do and you got to put out fires. And at times the first level supervisors, the new brand new leaders, they've got fires and tasks that typically need to be done by the end of the day. That's just the nature of the beast. Your mid-level people typically have tasks that need to be done by the end of the week, or fires to put out by the end of the week. And your senior executives typically have long range. Oh, this is 3 or 4 months out. So when you're thinking about that, you set the expectation and say, these are the things that I expect from you at your level. The tasks that you're assigned to and the problems that you encounter, get past them by the end of the day. Done. Next level, get them by the end of the week, get them by the end, whether the quarter, the 6 months from now, whatever. So that's one thing to think about in regard to that expectation. Then you also couple that with, remember, consider they're salaried employees, and legally, if they work any time during the day, they don't earn that wage, right? So I explicitly stated to the different levels. At this level, I know on days like this, and I gave examples of things that done, you're going to put in extra time. It may be 12 hours, it may be 14 hours, whatever. And it's whether it's the time of year, the task involved, whatever, I acknowledge that you're putting in extra time. Conversely, when you're doing these other things, they're still tasks, they're still important. You still got to get them done by the end of the day if you're on that level, but it might not take you a total of 8 hours. I'm not paying you more when you work 12. Guess what? I'm not paying you less if you work less than 8. So explicitly state that for all levels. And I inherited an environment when I was a CEO where, by golly, they better have their butts in their seats. And this was the outgoing CEO. They better have their butts in their seats 8 hours a day. If they're not in the office for 8 hours, they better have some type of paid time off in the system. They've simply got jobs to do, because I know they're routinely working past 8 hours. And if they're not here for a couple hours one day and they only work 5 or 6, it's about the quality of work and what they're doing for the organization. It's not whether they're not their butts in the seat. So I think people need to look through that lens. Not as easy when you're talking about somebody who is an hourly wage earner, but if it's task oriented, and I've got somebody I mentor who is in this environment and he's hourly wage earner, he sometimes works because of the nature of what he's doing. It could be an 11 to 13 hour day. Well, they know come Friday, well, I put in all these extra hours. I've got to show up for about an hour on Friday because I'm already at my 40. So he still does 40 hours, but he went into the situation knowing there were days that were going to be longer, which would equate to shorter days at the end of the week. He's never not had to go in on Friday because he's never worked such an excess that it covered all of Friday, but it happens. So that's how I've handled it in the past, and I think that's what people need to do, because it is, equity's got to be there, and if you look at task oriented, these people are more efficient and have a better product, and it takes them less time. That's not their fault. It takes you more time. That is your fault. So what do we need to do to get your skill set up to speed versus let's talk to the person who and field the complaint of the person. It's not fair. They got done before I did and I'm still working. Great. What support do you need so that you are as efficient and have the work quality that they have? What can I do to build them up to you, to build you up to them versus, oh, you're right, let me dump something on these top achievers because they're so good at their jobs. So I think both of those ideas get to the point of what do we do so there's equity.
Yeah, and it comes down to trust a lot too.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you have that trust in your relationship with your employee, and you know they're not finagling, oh no, I work this is too much. But sometimes gauging that trust is hard, especially if you're hired remotely and have never met your boss, right? Or never met your supervisor. Maybe online you've texted back and forth, I'm your supervisor for this project. And there are companies out there like that. That's hard to establish that trust, or to know if they're blowing smoke and saying, no, I'm working. Like I have a friend of mine, he got called by his supervisor and he had an event in the afternoon. that he had to do. And he worked the night before and got everything done, all the prep for the event. And the supervisor calls him on the phone, because it's appropriate to call also. And he goes, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Well, I'm fishing." And so he's at a lake fishing. It's like 9 o'clock in the morning. And he goes, don't you have to work today? And he goes, "Well, you're my boss." "Yeah, I have an event at 2. And he's like, and there was like this shock that, and he didn't know how to communicate. But the point is, he had his stuff done. The event is what the company gets paid for, not the prep for the event. The prep is there. If the prep isn't done, the event's going to fail. So why not take some time out and go fishing in the morning? I just thought it was hilarious. It's like, I guess that's right. I never thought of it that way. Now, if other employees find out that this guy's fishing during the day and doing his afternoon things, and they're not able to do that because they're not getting the stuff done. A lot of times he was staying up late at night getting the prep work done so he can get up early, go have his morning off, take the kids to school, go fishing, come back and do his event, and he's done for the day. He still did 8 hours. It just wasn't in that day.
Right.
And so it's a matter of perception. And like you said, those boundaries and those goals have to be set out. Those standards have to be set out and agreed upon.
I like that you brought up trust, and you're right. It's about trust, and through the lens of a leader, it's your job to facilitate that trust and prove to your people that they can trust you. Not demand respect, demand trust. Prove it. And as the employee, Ty told us a story in a previous episode where he just did not. He, in good conscience and in good faith, could not adhere to the direction of an organization, so he opted to seek employment elsewhere. That's on the employee. If you're in a situation where your leader's not proving he or she is trustworthy and you're not comfortable, you need to take care of yourself and go to another place that you can trust your people, and you will fit better. And with that, you will blossom, you will flourish. So it is about trust. And it's important that as the leader, you actually consciously work on that trust, because without it, you're going nowhere. And you've got the expectation. That leader in your example you just gave, the leader who was sort of shocked that your colleague was fishing, like, "Boss, at 2, the event's going to go off without a hitch. I'm ready." Because I would think through the lens of, what am I doing? If I've got an event at 2, I'm pacing the floor and going through mentally like all the different things that could go wrong, right? Well,
Right.
Your colleague took care of that the night before, fishing, getting his mind off of, like, that's healthy. And the proof is in the pudding. If on the back end, the leader said, "Oh boy, that was an excellent event. It went off just as expected and planned." Maybe he should fish more often then. I don't know.
Everybody has to fish.
Right.
Correct. Yeah,
Right.
you brought something up earlier. I just want to tag this on before we run out of time. You brought up it all comes out in the wash, basically, is what you're saying. Some days you work 5 hours, some days you work 13. Okay, so the whole concept of getting paid by salary or for 40 hours a week, it should come out in the wash. The problem, or one of the issues that arise, is if you're in a project-based or task-oriented based employment situation or organization, and you get a new project that's different than other projects you've done, and you don't have a frame of reference of how long it's going to take to get done. This, again, falls back where that trust issue is, because the person working on it, if he's your best and you trust him and he says, "No, this is going to take me 5 hours longer to do because we have these extra steps," or, "This is very simple. It's exactly like these other projects we did about a year ago. We just follow that model."
Right.
And if they know what they're doing, you can gauge that. But if you get someone that doesn't have experience and you're giving them a new project, that's on the leader. I mean, you may have hope for these people. Yeah, these people seem to be doing well, but they don't have that much experience. But let me give them this brand new project that our company's never done before. Well, first of all, that's a bonehead move. As a leader, if you're gonna do it, if you're gonna do that, you team them up with someone that actually has experience within the company and those types of things. So again, that trust issue is imperative. and the assigning of projects to the appropriate people. Now, it doesn't mean that since Joe is really good at these difficult projects, then we'll give them all to him. And we'll give the people that aren't good the easier projects. That's not fair either. You have to make it fair.
Right.
Okay. Or you pay a premium for Joe doing all the hard projects.
Your compensation should recognize how valuable he is, and how lack of value what the other people are bringing to the table. It should do both.
Yeah. So that's where compensation and trust come into play. And I think that's how you can, I hate the word regulate, but that's how you can manage a hybrid, fully remote system. Is by the trust and compensation factors that you have in place.
Yep. And it does come down to trust. Maybe the team, nobody's experienced in the new task, and it's a team oriented. We all have our part to play. That's where the trust comes in. All right, team, this is new to all of us. We're going to feel this out as we go, and we'll adjust as needed. Our first set of expectations is this. We'll see how it goes, and you adjust accordingly. And it's like leadership. We've talked about this. You encounter leadership all the time, situations that you've never encountered in the past, but you sort of like, all right, I sort of know what I'm doing because I've got all these experiences behind me. And when you're leading a team, especially remote, you've got to have that trust built in so you can collectively navigate to the right spot. And you'll be that much better as a team because of that. So two things I want to bring up before I conclude the discussion today. I mentioned at the introduction, I've worked with my current partner in Leading Like a Buffalo, Dr. Mike Jewick, in 2 environments, in person and now remotely. Drastically different. When we were in person, we would meet for an hour a day, 98% of which we were talking about organizational related things. Were there times when we were off task? Yeah, that was the other 2% on average, but 98% of the time. And we didn't have an agenda. We just talked. And it was beneficial for me as a leader, him as a leader, and for the organization. Now that we are meeting in a much more structured environment where all right, it's on our calendar on Wednesday morning, we're going to meet at 9 and we have an agenda. It's not as valuable a discussion because we don't see each other all day long and run into each other at the proverbial water cooler. And we don't have, hey, we talked this morning about X, Y, and Z, and I just encountered so-and-so, and this is an update. All that's missing. So there is a difference. So you've got to keep that in mind. And the other thing I wanted to bring up, if you're thinking about bringing people back in or deciding now to go remote or hybrid or to continue it, keep those things in mind. Plus, Ty also brought up offhandedly, if you're having meetings in a hybrid or remote environment, make sure the videos cameras are on. Huge. I have another person I am coaching who is about 6 months into a new career, has not seen the face of 2 of his teammates. Doesn't know what they look like. He found one on LinkedIn, so he has an idea whether the LinkedIn picture is accurate or not, or how old. But he's not seen the face on a live video, and they meet at least once a week as a team via video conference. Well, apparently we should call it audio conference because most of them don't have video on. So keep that in mind too, because and Ty brought this up in a previous episode, seeing someone say something and the mannerisms and their hand gestures, that can convey a lot to you. And if you're only hearing the words, we miss some of the meaning. So encourage your people to have their screens on, talk to them about why it's important, and it will help build the trust.
Yeah, that builds trust, being able to see someone when they speak. I mean, that's a huge percentage of that trust building process.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Well, it's in February. This was our first discussion about accountability. We're going to talk about accountability through different lenses for the rest of the month. And we'd love to hear from you. So if you got any questions, you want to join us and be part of the discussion, jump on next time live when we're on LinkedIn. Typically Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. And in the meantime, if you'd like to work with us, feel free to reach out, DM us on LinkedIn directly, or email us at dan@leadingbuffalo.com or at ty@tradesecrets.com. Plus, you can always check out our previous content over on YouTube on the Enhanced Leadership Project. So we're talking leadership. You can do it. Good luck.
Take care, everyone.